Harry is not the greatest and most intelligent bunny on the planet, and I've said this many times. And quite frankly, he very rarely engages brain before he engages mouth. And to say something like that.
For years, Prince Harry and Meghan have fiercely guarded Archie and Lilibet from the public eye. But a startling revelation has suddenly reignited old questions. This time, it's not coming from critics or tabloid rumors, but from former royal press secretary Dickie Arbiter himself. His unexpected comments have sent royal watchers into a frenzy, and Meghan's reported response has only deepened the mystery. So, what shocking truth did Arbiter expose? And why is Meghan's reaction leaving so many people asking what's really happening behind the scenes? But what could be the unsettling truth that got Meghan reacting? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. To help us create more videos and uncover the latest royal drama, please subscribe. The candle that sparked debate. What started as something as simple and harmless as a candle soon grew into a topic that many people could not stop talking about. At first glance, it looked like just another product released under the As Ever brand. Nothing unusual. A candle, like many others on the market, meant to create a pleasant smell and maybe a calming mood in a home. But there was something that made this candle stand out in a way no one expected. On the label of the product were the names of Archie and Lilibet. At first, some people saw it as sweet or personal. It looked like a small family touch, a way of bringing children into a creative project. Perhaps it was meant to feel warm, innocent, and connected to home life. After all, many parents enjoy involving their children in small ways when building something creative. However, this was not just a private item kept within a family home. It was not a drawing on a fridge or a handmade craft sitting on a shelf. It was a product placed into the public space, made available for anyone to buy. And that changed everything for critics. To them, the moment those names appeared on a commercial product, the meaning shifted completely. It was no longer just about a candle. It became about identity, responsibility, and boundaries. Archie and Lilibet are still very young, only 7 and 5 years old. At that age, children are fully dependent on adults for almost every decision in their lives. They do not understand business structures. They do not know what trademarks mean. They are not aware of how branding works, or how a name can become something valuable in the marketplace. Most importantly, they cannot truly agree or disagree to their names being used in a public commercial setting. They cannot fully understand what it means for their identities to be connected to a product that is sold, marketed, and discussed by strangers. This raised a difficult and emotional question for many observers. Was this simply a harmless and loving idea, meant to make children feel included in a family project? A gesture of closeness, creativity, and shared experience? Or was something deeper happening beneath the surface, where even a child's name could quietly become part of a larger brand story, carrying value beyond its personal meaning? As more people discussed it, the candle became less about its scent or design, and more about what it represented. It turned into a symbol in a much bigger debate about childhood, privacy, and the use of personal identity in public life. In the end, that single detail, the appearance of 2 young children's names, became the spark that ignited a wider conversation. A conversation not just about a product, but about where the line should be drawn between family affection and public branding, between private life and commercial interest. And that question is what continues to sit at the center of the entire discussion. What exactly did Meghan do with the innocent children? Could it have been a one-off mistake or an intentional act? Let's delve into the details of the pattern hidden in plain sight, from Instagram posts to shopping links. The blurred line of family. This was not a one-time incident or a random mistake, critics argue. Over the years, they point to several moments that, in their view, form a pattern. One of the most discussed claims goes back to Meghan's Instagram activity before she stepped away from social media. At the time, her account was reportedly set up with shopping features. This meant that people who followed her posts could tap on certain images and be taken directly to pages where they could buy the items shown. Some of these posts included family pictures. In a few cases, critics say, the children were seen wearing clothing or accessories that could be clicked and purchased online. To supporters, these were simple lifestyle posts. But to critics, they felt something more complex was happening underneath the surface. The concern was not about sharing family photos. Many public figures share moments from their lives, especially those in the public eye. The issue raised by critics was the connection between children's images and commercial activity. In their view, what should have been private or purely personal family moments were placed inside a digital space where attention could easily be turned into sales. They argue that these posts were not just memories stored in an album. Instead, they existed in a system where visibility could lead directly to financial gain. Every view, every click, and every interaction had potential value. In such a setup, even something as simple as a child's outfit could become part of a shopping pathway. Eventually, after public criticism grew louder, the shopping features were reportedly removed from the account. However, those who are critical of the situation say that the removal of the tool did not necessarily change the bigger concern they had raised. In their eyes, it was not about one feature alone, but about the overall approach. They believe the method may have simply shifted form rather than disappeared. According to this view, personal and family moments continued to appear at carefully chosen times, often when emotional connection, relatability, or public engagement was at its highest. Supporters of this criticism say this is where things become unclear. When does a personal memory stop being just a memory? And when does it start becoming a tool for attention or influence? This is the heart of the debate they raise, the thin and often invisible line between genuine family life and content that can also generate interest, engagement, or even income. To critics, that line is no longer easy to see, and in some cases, it may already be fading. What did Dicky Arbiter say about Meghan's action? Why did he make such a comment? Let's dive into the entails of Dicky Arbiter's powerful warning and why his words carry so much weight. Inside Dicky Arbiter's warning. Few people understand the power and the dangers of royal publicity better than Dicky Arbiter. Long before endless social media debates and carefully staged online images became the norm, Arbiter stood at the center of one of the world's most watched families. As Princess Diana's press secretary, he worked closely with her and witnessed firsthand the difficult balancing act she faced every day, living under constant public attention while desperately trying to give Princes William and Harry something close to a normal childhood. He was present during some of the darkest and most painful periods of Diana's life. More importantly, he saw how determined she was to shield her sons from the pressures that came with being born into royalty. Diana understood that titles and traditions could wait. Childhood could not. That is why she deliberately created moments that many ordinary families take for granted. Trips to theme parks, visits to fast food restaurants, casual days out away from palace walls. These experiences were never random or meaningless. Diana carefully arranged them because she wanted William and Harry to experience life beyond royal ceremonies and flashing cameras. She wanted them to laugh, play, and simply be children before the weight of public expectations settled on their shoulders. That history is precisely why Arbiter's recent criticism has captured so much attention. His words carry the authority of someone who has spent years navigating intense media scrutiny and understanding the price that fame can impose on a family. His message is remarkably simple. Parents who genuinely want privacy for their children, he argues, should avoid placing them online. Family photographs can remain in albums, on phones, or stored privately on computers. Once images are released into the public domain, controlling where they travel or who uses them becomes nearly impossible. The loss of anonymity, he warns, often follows. Yet what has sparked even greater discussion is not merely his advice, but one powerful word he chose to describe what he believes is happening today. Ruthlessly, not by mistake, not through carelessness, not as an unintended consequence, but ruthlessly. It is a striking choice of language, especially coming from a man who spent years helping manage the image of one of the most closely watched families on Earth. Arbiter knows how publicity works. He understands its rewards, its risks, and its consequences. That is why his remark has echoed far beyond the usual world of tabloid headlines, turning a simple criticism into a conversation that many observers find difficult to dismiss. Did another royal expert express his view over Meghan's action? Who was it? What did he say? Let's dig into the details of Duncan Larcombe's different view of a content calendar rather than a family album. a pattern that keeps raising questions. Veteran royal journalist Duncan Larcombe offers a different way of looking at the situation. For him, the issue goes far beyond simple family photos or regular updates about the children. He believes the timing of these public appearances tells a much bigger and more planned story. According to Larcombe, images of Archie and Lilibet rarely feel random. Instead, they often appear at moments that seem carefully chosen and strategic. He points out a pattern. When negative news stories rise, new photos tend to be released soon after. When business launches or media projects need attention, warm family images often follow. And when Prince Harry receives positive coverage alone, new pictures of Meghan and the children usually appear shortly after. Taken together, he suggests this creates a coordinated communication strategy that helps shape public perception and manage narratives, even though observers still debate whether this pattern is intentional or coincidental overall. Of course, one example by itself proves nothing. Even two similar incidents could easily be dismissed as coincidence. But critics say the repeated timing is what makes people pause. When the same sequence appears again and again over several years, some observers find it harder to believe that everything is happening by chance. Larcombe's description of the situation has particularly caught people's attention. He argues that the children's public appearances sometimes feel less like pages from a private family album and more like entries on a carefully planned content schedule. It is a comparison that many royal watchers have remembered because it paints a picture of strategy and planning rather than spontaneous moments shared naturally with the public. To supporters, these family updates are simply loving snapshots meant to celebrate special occasions and connect with supporters. But to critics, the pattern appears too consistent to ignore. They believe each image arrives with remarkable timing, almost as though every appearance serves a specific purpose. Yet perhaps Larcombe's most emotional observation is not about media strategy at all. It is about Prince Harry himself. Meghan spent much of her life dreaming of international fame, Hollywood success, and global recognition. Those ambitions, he believes, have largely become reality. Harry, however, grew up in an entirely different world. Despite being born into one of the most famous families on Earth, he often spoke about wanting privacy and escaping the pressures that came with royal life. He dreamed of a quieter existence, away from endless cameras and constant attention. And that, Larcombe says, is the real tragedy. In his view, Meghan may be living the life she always hoped for, but Harry, the prince who longed for peace and anonymity, may instead be experiencing the very life he spent years trying to leave behind. A reality that, to some, resembles his deepest nightmare. Meghan seems to have a bad reputation in the royal family. Are there instances where Meghan had been profiled before her marriage to Harry? Was Harry ever warned before the marriage? Let's take a look at the warnings Harry got back then about marrying Meghan. Warnings that echoed years later. According to reports circulating online and claims attributed to royal biographer Hugo Vickers, Prince Harry was reportedly given words of caution by two senior members of the royal family before his marriage to Meghan Markle. These cautions were not presented as criticism of Meghan herself, nor as opposition to their relationship. Instead, they were said to focus on the rapid pace of the romance. Some family members reportedly felt that the relationship was developing very quickly and that such an important, lifelong decision required more time, reflection, and careful consideration. Their concern, as described in these accounts, was not about love itself, but about ensuring that a major step like marriage was not rushed without deeper reflection and long-term clarity. Vickers claimed that the late Queen Elizabeth II privately felt uneasy about how rapidly events were unfolding. According to these accounts, the monarch believed that time would provide greater clarity and a stronger foundation for such a life-changing commitment. She was reportedly said to have encouraged her grandson to slow down and allow the relationship to develop further before rushing into marriage. However, Harry and Meghan remained committed to their plans. After announcing their engagement in late 2017, they moved ahead and tied the knot in May 2018, less than a year after their relationship became public. The Queen, according to reports, was not the only family member who had reservations. In his book Revenge, author Tom Bower alleged that Charles Spencer, Princess Diana's brother, and Harry's maternal uncle, also offered a word of warning. Bauer claimed that Prince William had privately expressed concerns about the pace of the relationship, prompting Spencer to speak with his nephew. The Earl allegedly advised Harry not to rush into marriage and to carefully consider such a major commitment. Yet, according to the account, Harry did not welcome the advice and remained firmly determined to move forward. Nothing appeared capable of changing his mind. In May 2018, Harry and Meghan exchanged vows at Windsor Castle in a spectacular ceremony watched by millions around the world. The wedding quickly became one of the most memorable royal celebrations of the decade, symbolizing a modern chapter for the monarchy and capturing global attention. But the years that followed proved far more turbulent than many had imagined. Growing tensions with the royal institution and increasing media scrutiny eventually led the couple to step away from their roles as senior working royals in 2020 and begin a new life in North America. Although these accounts remain claims made by royal authors rather than officially confirmed palace records, they have continued to fuel debate. Many observers still wonder whether some members of the royal family had recognized early signs of difficulties that would later become impossible to ignore. Which recent scenario made the public question Meghan's stance? Could she really be hypocritical? Let's talk about the Geneva speech and the contradiction critics can't stop talking about. Geneva speech privacy debate. Few public discussions have stirred as much debate about consistency and personal privacy as Meghan's speech in Geneva. Speaking to a global audience, she delivered a strong message about the dangers children face online. She spoke about social media systems designed to keep people scrolling for as long as possible, even when it is not healthy. She also warned about digital spaces where children can be quietly tracked, influenced, or even exposed to harm without fully understanding it. Her message was serious, emotional, and widely seen as important, even by those who do not always agree with her. But shortly after the speech, a different conversation began to take shape. Critics pointed out what they saw as a contradiction between her message and her own family's online presence. They noted that images of her children continued to appear on the internet after her call for stronger protection of children in digital spaces. This became the center of a growing public debate. Supporters of Meghan responded by arguing that her children's faces are often hidden or only partly shown, suggesting that their privacy is still being protected. However, child safety specialists have offered a broader view. They argue that privacy is not only about whether a child's face is visible or not. It also includes small details such as birthdays, locations, home environments, and daily routines. Over time, these details can build a clear digital identity for a child, even if the child has never chosen to be part of public life. Some experts have gone further, warning that even partially hiding a child's face may not reduce attention as intended. Instead, it can sometimes increase curiosity, leading people to search more for what is being hidden. This, they argue, weakens the idea that partial privacy measures are always effective. As a result, the discussion around Meghan's speech became even more intense, with people divided between supporting her message and questioning how it is applied in real life. Ultimately, the debate reflects a larger question about modern parenting in the digital age. Many parents today face the challenge of balancing sharing moments of their children's lives while also protecting their long-term privacy. The internet remembers everything, and even small posts can remain visible for years. For some, Meghan's speech highlights an urgent need to rethink how children are represented online. For others, it raises difficult questions about consistency between public advocacy and private choices. In the end, the discussion continues to grow, showing how complex it has become to protect children in a world where visibility online is almost unavoidable. Many argue that clearer global standards are needed to guide how children appear on social platforms moving forward as well too. But is this the only negative issue raised so far about Meghan's behavior? What else has long been said about her actions? Let's find out. Meghan Markle, royal staff dispute. The renewed attention on bullying allegations involving Meghan Markle has kept public focus on reported tensions within the British royal household. These claims were first brought into internal discussions in 2018 by Jason Knauf, who at the time served as a senior communications secretary working closely with members of the royal family. According to reports originally shared within the palace and later covered by outlets such as Fox News, Knauf expressed concerns that Meghan had allegedly treated some staff members in a harsh or unfair manner during her time as a working royal. The report suggested that 2 personal assistants resigned from their positions under difficult circumstances and that other staff members reportedly felt stressed, uncomfortable, or undermined. These claims did not immediately become public. Instead, they remained part of internal discussions within royal communications circles, adding to already growing scrutiny around Meghan and Prince Harry's life inside the monarchy. The situation changed in 2021 when leaked emails attributed to Jason Knauf surfaced and were published shortly before Prince Harry and Meghan's widely watched television interview with Oprah Winfrey. The timing of the leak intensified global attention. Many commentators felt that the allegations, appearing so close to a major media appearance, added pressure and controversy to an already sensitive moment for the couple. Coverage by Fox News and other outlets highlighted how the story quickly became part of a larger public debate about the couple's relationship with the royal institution. Jason Knauf, who previously worked closely with both Prince William and Prince Harry, later spoke publicly about the matter. He stated that he stood by the concerns he had raised and said he had no regrets about reporting them at the time. His remarks were widely interpreted as a firm confirmation that he believed the issue had been serious enough to warrant attention. On the other side, representatives for Meghan Markle have consistently and strongly rejected the allegations. They have described the claims as false and part of what they call a broader campaign to damage her reputation. According to her team, the narrative does not reflect her true character or conduct, and they have also pointed to what they describe as unfair treatment and negative media pressure directed at her over the years. The controversy prompted Buckingham Palace to examine how the complaints had been handled internally. However, the findings of that review were never made public, which left many questions unanswered. This lack of transparency has continued to fuel speculation and competing interpretations of what actually happened behind palace doors. Over time, the issue has been revisited in interviews, books, and media analysis, including commentary from outlets such as New York Post. It has become part of a wider conversation about Meghan and Harry's strained relationship with the royal establishment. Supporters argue that the repeated resurfacing of the claims is unfair and damaging, while critics believe the allegations raise important questions about workplace conduct within the royal household. As a result, the bullying controversy remains one of the most talked about and divisive stories linked to Meghan Markle's period as a working royal, continuing to influence public opinion even years after it first emerged. What do Meghan's supporters hold on to in defending her? Has she been misunderstood all the while? Let's delve into the details of Meghan's royal culture shock and the challenges she faced in the palace. From Hollywood to royal strain. Meghan Markle's entry into royal life was widely described by commentators as far more challenging than many people outside the palace had imagined. What seemed, from the outside, like a graceful step into a world of luxury, tradition, and admiration quickly turned out to be a strict and highly structured way of life, filled with rules, expectations, and constant public attention. Observers of the royal family often said that Meghan's move from a Hollywood acting career into becoming the Duchess of Sussex was a deep culture shock. In Hollywood, she had been used to a fast-paced but flexible environment where personal choices and individual expression were highly valued. However, life inside the monarchy, often called the firm, was very different. According to journalist Samara Gill, royal life was far from the Disney-like fairy tale many people imagine. Instead, it required discipline, patience, emotional control, and a willingness to follow long-standing traditions without question. Some royal commentators believed Meghan may not have fully understood how rigid the royal system was before joining it. Royal expert Jenny Bond suggested that one of the biggest difficulties was the clear hierarchy within the royal family. There was no possibility of rising to the top or shaping the institution freely. Every role was fixed, and expectations were already defined. Bond explained that while it is natural for anyone to want independence and control over their own life, the royal structure simply does not allow much personal freedom, which can be very difficult for someone coming from a modern, independent background. Another commentator, Phil Dampier, argued that Meghan may have struggled more as she began to fully experience the limitations of royal duties and protocols. He suggested that once she understood how restricted royal life could be, she became increasingly uncomfortable in the role. In his view, she may not have been fully committed to staying within the monarchy for a lifetime, and might have always seen her future differently. Meghan herself later shared that her early experience in the royal family was more difficult than expected. She explained that she did not receive formal training in royal etiquette, and often had to learn by observing others and asking questions. Even simple things, like knowing traditions or learning the British national anthem, were things she had to pick up on her own. In the end, after less than 2 years as working members of the royal family, Meghan and Prince Harry made the major decision to step back from royal duties in 2020. They chose to pursue financial independence and build a new life in North America. This decision became widely known across the world as Megxit, marking a major turning point in modern royal history and sparking global discussion about tradition, freedom, and personal choice. Could Meghan have joined the royal family for fame and identity? Why would she use her children's identity for personal gain? Let's dive into the details of the domain names, royal titles, and the question of consent, child identity, and ethical questions. Long before Archie and Lilibet were even old enough to understand what school means, reports suggested that internet domain names linked to their names had already been quietly registered. In simple terms, this means that web addresses containing their names were reserved early so that no one else could use them later. To some people, especially supporters, this looks like careful planning. They see it as a smart and protective step. In today's world, where names can quickly become brands, securing a child's name early can prevent strangers from taking advantage of it. From this point of view, it is simply foresight, a way of saying, let us protect what belongs to them before others turn it into something commercial. But critics read the same action in a very different way. To them, registering domain names is not just protection, it suggests preparation for possible future profit or public value. In modern society, companies and individuals often secure names because names carry power. A name can become a business identity, a media brand, or even a source of income. And because of this, critics argue that even a child's identity can slowly be turned into something with financial meaning attached to it. This is where a deeper ethical question begins to appear, and it is not easy to ignore. Children, especially very young ones, cannot understand or agree to these kinds of decisions. They do not yet know what it means for a name to be used online. They cannot understand how a simple name today might become a brand tomorrow. They cannot fully grasp what long-term digital ownership or commercial use might involve. The same concern extends beyond domain names. It touches other things as well, like candles made in their names, online shops that reference them, and even the use of royal titles attached to childhood identity. All of these raise the same uncomfortable issue. They involve personal identity being placed into public or commercial spaces before the children themselves can have a say. Legally, none of this is unusual. Parents are allowed to make decisions on behalf of their children. That is part of responsibility and care. But ethically, the situation is more complex. People begin to disagree sharply when it comes to where protection ends and exploitation begins, and whether early branding crosses that invisible line. And perhaps the most difficult question is directed at Harry himself. He has often spoken strongly against media intrusion, public exploitation, and the way personal lives can be turned into profit. Yet critics now ask a pointed question. If he truly believes in drawing a boundary between privacy and publicity, why does that boundary seem less clear when it comes to his own children? Does this and other similar narratives suggest that Archie and Lilibet might become the last royal connection? What do critics say about the Sussexes' use of royal identity for personal gains? Let's dig further into the details of the bigger truth. Family, fame, and invisible boundaries. Beneath all the heated arguments and public reactions, there is a quieter and more uncomfortable truth that keeps appearing again and again. No matter how the story is told or defended, certain patterns seem difficult to ignore. Many of the Sussexes' most successful moments in the public eye have been closely tied, in one way or another, to the royal family. Their Netflix documentary reached massive global audiences largely because it opened a window into royal life, conflict, and behind-the-scenes tension. Their interviews consistently drew attention not just because of who they are, but because of what they left behind. Even their most widely discussed media appearances gained traction through royal connection rather than separation from it. By contrast, projects that stand completely on their own, without royal references, history, or controversy, have often struggled to create the same level of global buzz. They may still have value, but they do not always carry the same instant worldwide curiosity. Then there are Archie and Lilibet. They are not just ordinary celebrity children growing up in the public eye. They carry something heavier in public imagination, a direct, living connection to the British monarchy. They are grandchildren of the king, tied by blood to one of the most recognized royal institutions in the world. In many ways, they represent continuity, small but permanent reminders of a royal link that time and distance cannot fully erase. Because of this, some critics raise a difficult concern. They argue that such a powerful connection naturally creates an incentive, whether intentional or not, to keep these children present within the wider public narrative of the Sussex brand. Not necessarily in an exploitative sense, and not as a claim of bad intentions, but as a question of influence. When a connection holds value, it tends to remain visible. This is where history is often brought into the discussion. Princess Diana, for example, also shared moments of her children's lives with the public. However, those moments existed in a different world, one without modern social media ecosystems, algorithm-driven attention cycles, branded partnerships, or monetized storytelling platforms that now define celebrity culture. And so the conversation returns to a deeper question, one that sits at the center of the entire debate. It is not simply about whether parents love their children, or whether families should ever share personal images, or even about general concerns of online safety and privacy. Instead, it becomes something more subtle and harder to define. When does sharing family life remain innocent family sharing? And when does it begin to function as part of a larger public identity, image, or even brand? There is no single answer that satisfies everyone. Each person draws that boundary differently, shaped by values, culture, and trust. And perhaps that is exactly why the discussion refuses to disappear. Because beneath all the headlines, defenses, and criticism, the real issue was never just about a candle, or a single post, or a single moment. It was always about something much larger: how modern fame blends with family, how privacy competes with attention, and where the invisible line between personal life and public brand is ultimately drawn. So, what do you think about Dickie Arbiter's comment? Do you really think Meghan could be using the innocent children for commercial gains? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.